downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
Right on, ladies and gentlemen. Guess what? It's that time of the week again. I'm talking about your man. I am Andy Evans, but not the man, because that's the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan himself. And, of course, I'm talking about Mr. Chris Stefanick joining me for a big Buckeye win recap, Chris.
Oh, my God. Happy days are here again. Wow, what a game.
Unbelievable, sir. 2 straight years, 2 straight wins by a total of 2 points for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Oh my goodness, Chris! What were you? Did you have to take a Valium afterwards? Because let me tell you what, I definitely had to take a frigging Valium after that football game. Are you kidding me?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it was wild. I don't normally take anything to sleep, other than, like, I take a magnesium supplement at night just because, in general, people tend to not have enough magnesium in their diet, and myself included, and it helps you to sleep. So I'll do that at night, not just, that's nothing. But, like, I actually did take a little something to help with my sleep because I was like, holy fuck.
I mean, you've got to be kidding me. What an insane finish. Once again, Ohio State, second year in a row, has to clobber and climb and claw, tooth and nail their way back into that football game. And final score, and everybody out there pretty much knows right now, or should I say, let me rewind that. Everybody out there knows the final score, 27-26. But Chris, I want to get your take on your thoughts. Just give me a quick synopsis, though, from start to finish. What's going through your mind as this football game is transpiring?
Oh, my God. Well, it's hard to do a quick synopsis of it because literally, like, I could spend longer than the game took to actually play out. I could spend longer than that just, analyzing it because there were so many things to talk about, right?
Oh, my goodness.
I guess if I'm going to give just a quick summary, I would say, basically what a job of Urban keeping the players focused. What a sign of, like, mental toughness. I mean, they're physically tough. Of course, you got to be physically tough to play this game. And, Coach Mick has that team as physically tough as anybody, but that was some mental toughness shown to go in there. And, they did not look phased, even when down by two scores with 8 minutes to go. And just cool as a cucumber went out there and kept playing and believing they could win. And, they pulled it off. It was unbelievable.
Well, I was telling the couple of people that I'm sitting there watching the game with, 26-14, they're down by 12 with 8 minutes left to go. I mean, this was somewhat reminiscent of last year's game, but I just kept looking at them, and I'm like, they lost this game. Ohio State lost this football game, and one of the guys that I was watching the game with, to his credit, and maybe it was because his name was Chris, so I should have known right there and then. He knew what the hell he was talking about.
Right.
He's like, dude, they've got this. They've got this. They did this last year. They're going to do it again this year. I'm just good old negative Nancy Andy. I'm like, no. They lost this football game. That's all right. Hey, let's hope that Penn State can lose a couple of games somewhere. Ohio State can somehow play their way back into a Big Ten championship game appearance. But otherwise, this game is over. And then about a minute and 15 seconds later, Benjamin Victor, I mean, that's by far the greatest touchdown catch he's had so far in his OSU career. I mean, going back behind him, up in the air, like up over his head and behind him, he snags that pass from Haskins and then just somehow weaves his way 47 yards into the end zone. And that pulled them to within 5. And then, of course, we know that the Buckeyes went down, and defense played great to get them in that position for that final drive. And with 2 minutes left to go, Haskins finds K.J. Hill on a 24-yard screen pass, and the rest is history, as they say. But what did you see? Let's first talk about the offense, Chris. Let me ask you this, dude. Should we be worried about Dwayne Haskins? Okay, and here's why I say this, all right? This is his second big-time game now, right? Like on the big stage, playing a good team, a ranked team. Penn State, I think, proved they're definitely a better team than TCU. But Haskins, 22 of 39. 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, only took 1 sack the whole game, and that was all the way back in the first quarter. Didn't take any more after that. Not like that's necessarily his fault if he takes a sack or not. But not being the scrambler that JT was, I still think that was pretty impressive the way he did move around in the pocket, especially with that Benjamin Victor touchdown pass. Did throw an interception, which was not his fault. It was not. That bounced off of Rashad Berry's hands there also in the first quarter. But 22 of 39, 56% complete. I mean, here's a dude that shredded Oregon State, Rutgers, and Tulane for over, 75% passing in the game. And then he went up against TCU. I think he threw like 65%. I mean, he completed 56% of his passes. Should we be concerned about Dwayne Haskins? Because I can only surmise that the defenses maybe are not going to be as good as Penn State, but they're certainly going to be better than the Oregon States and Rutgers and Tulanes of the world.
So if this game has you now worried about Dwayne Haskins, I think you've got a problem. Because,
well, I've got a problem regardless, but
right. Yeah, well, I guess that we all have problems. So in my mind, I feel even better about Haskins after this game.
Okay.
So let me explain that. So
yeah,
he did show some vulnerability, but this was probably arguably the hardest place in college football to go win a game on the road. Penn State at night, white out for Ohio State. That crowd, it doesn't get any harder than that. And he's not had to do that before. And we're talking about the kid's 5th start. We're not talking, Trace McSorley's, in what, like his, 300th start or something?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe not that many, but it's pretty close. This
is his 5th start. So the poise he showed out there, the first time having to face adversity, the first time really facing pressure, because that's one thing. It's one thing. A lot of guys look great in 7-on-7 drills, right, and completing passes left and right. It's a whole other thing when you got a defender bearing down on you, when you're going to get hit, but you still got to complete the ball anyway. That's a whole other thing. And he got pressured in this game and wasn't always accurate on that. The accuracy did drop, which is to be expected. The accuracy is going to drop, but he still was making plays. He still had a pretty good line going, especially when you consider the circumstances. His stats were still good, especially considering the Berry interception that was a completed pass. Not to mention how many drops were there again, like early on, because the first half was pretty abysmal, but he had I think the first 3 drives, there were 3 drops that would have kept the drives going. So how much better would his stats have looked had the players should catch balls that they should be catching, right? There's also a line of thinking that said, after players kept making drops, after that Berry interception, Haskins started trying to press a little bit rather than, and then he calmed back down after that. And that's why you saw him try to aiming the ball a little more. And so, he wasn't as good until the second half. That's just kind of speculation. I don't know. But yeah, I was very impressed with Haskins. I will take him any day of the week.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I guess, if anything, I was just kind of bringing up a point just to bring up a point, because I have heard some, talk to some people, said, Haskins, and it did kind of enter into my mind a little bit, and I thought, well, maybe the NFL stats kind of are taking a look at something like this. The fact that he can go out there and shred the easy defenses, the harder ones he's got difficulty with, which, of course, makes friggin' sense, right? The better defenses are always going to give even the best quarterbacks in the world a multitude of problems. But I will agree with you. I think that Dwayne Haskins showed that he's as advertised. He talks about how he never really gets rattled. He doesn't believe in the hype. He goes out there and lets his play speak for himself. And from a stats standpoint, this was probably his quote unquote worst game of the year. But to throw 3 touchdowns, 270 yards, and only have 1 interception, that technically was not his fault. And, I mean, that wasn't a perfect spot for Rashad Berry to catch that pass. I mean, it was, face mask high, right there in his grill. And what's that? In stride, and just bonked right off of his hands. So you can't put the ball there much better than that. And have your guy doink it off of his hands like that. But talk about Trace McSorley just for a minute. I realize this is the Buckeye Leaf cast, but my goodness, Trace McSorley, like you said, I mean, hey, dude's a senior. 25 carries, Chris, 175 yards by their quarterback. Everybody was talking about Miles Sanders, and we all knew that Trace McSorley had the ability to scramble, but the defense was letting him run all over them, and summarily, the defense also gave up a 90-plus yard play for a touchdown. What's going on with the defense?
So, okay, the big plays, it's something we've been talking about for a long time. Unfortunately, it's become a staple of Greg Schiano's offense.
It has.
The players, especially linebackers and safeties are supposed. You should never give up a 93-yard play. I mean, unless you're in like man-to-man, no safety help. But they had safety help on it, and Isaiah Pryor took a bad angle again. If you take the right angle, you've got him. It's all about the safety is so important for the safety to take the right angle, and you might give up like a 20-yard, 30-yard play, but your safety keeps it from being a 90-yard play. And all these plays where they're big, you can look and see. Typically, it's Isaiah Pryor. Out of position, taking the wrong angle, miscommunication, usually just taking the wrong angle. And that one, that, what is his name, Hamlin?
KJ Hamler, yep.
Hamler, he's one of the fastest players in college football, and he did burn Shaun Wade. He burned him. But that's going to happen when you're playing the fastest wide receiver in college football. Sometimes he's going to get the better of you, and that's why you have safety help over the top. And Isaiah Pryor took a bad angle. He should have had him for like a 20-yard gain. At worst, it was a slant. At worst, a 20-yard gain. So that's on Isaiah Pryor. He does not deserve to be out there. He's not an Ohio State level player. He's just not. And part of me was happy when he got ejected for targeting. Because I'm so sick of his. But I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, please because they've been giving Shaun Wade reps at safety.
Yeah.
I'm like, put Shaun Wade in there. Put Shaun Wade in there. Put Shaun Wade in there. And then they put in Wint, and I'm like, because he's actually even worse than as bad as I've been saying about Pryor.
Oh God,
he's actually
worse
even worse. So but here's an interesting thing. The defense has been suspect, but a lot of the nature of it has been giving up big plays. If you take away the 2 big plays, the 93-yard pass play and the 51-yard run by McSorley, which I'm going to break that down in a second too, should have never been a 51-yard run. If you take those away, Penn State's yards go from 479 to 335. And we're talking about they were the number 1 offense in the country coming in. So, and again, whiteout at home, night game, ideal conditions for Penn State, and you held the number 1 offense to 335 yards. So it's like if they could just find a way to shore that up, the defense was pretty good in this. So first of all, let me break down this McSorley 51-yard run. They had Tough Borland spying McSorley. When you're spying the quarterback, you're basically playing 10 on 11. Because you have one guy that's he's not rushing the passer.
He's not doing nothing. He's just hanging out waiting for him to do something, to run, basically.
Yeah, he's not rushing the passer. He's not in pass coverage. You're basically 10 on 11. His only job is to make sure the quarterback doesn't run wild. And McSorley took off, and Borland just couldn't get there. And I'm like, and McSorley isn't like this crazy athlete. We're not talking about Michael Vick here. This guy's right. Just like for a running quarterbacks, he's kind of a mediocre athlete. Now I guess he's probably, a better athlete than, as far as running the ball goes, than like a Dwayne Haskins, who's not a running quarterback. But as far as running quarterbacks go, he's just kind of mediocre. And he just beat Borland. He just beat him. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. We need to get Borland. I don't know. I'm starting to question if Borland is athletic enough to be an Ohio State level linebacker.
Or is he maybe not fully recuperated from that Achilles injury?
That very well could be it.
You know?
So we were really questioning him coming back as early as he did. We're like, oh my God, this is like a miracle of medical science. Well, maybe it's not so much a miracle after all.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think I just don't think he's ready. An Achilles injury, that's pretty serious stuff. And for that to have just happened back, 4 or 5 months ago, I don't think so.
All right. So let me go back to this real quick here. So if you take away their 2 big plays, which they should, if a spying linebacker should have stopped McSorley for like a 10-yard gain max. That slant the safety should have got him at like 15, 20 yards.
Yeah.
You're looking at 335 yards instead of 479. They held, if you take away that 93-yard pass for McSorley, do you know he only had 193 yards passing in the game, and he would have been below 50% passing.
Yeah, because he was right at 50%, 16 to 32.
Right, I guess he would have. If you make the play, he still completes it, but it's not a 93-yard play. So instead, he's right at 50% with 193 yards. That's not a good game. That's not enough to beat Ohio State. You can't come into an Ohio State game and throw 193 yards, 50% completion ratio, and expect to beat Ohio State. So they did their job in pass coverage. Sans Isaiah Pryor not being, competent. Then. Running the ball.
Mild understatement, but okay.
Yeah, so then running the ball, you got Sanders. He came into this game 495 yards and was averaging 7 yards per carry. They held him to 2.7 yards per carry, Andy. 2.7.
They did. That was, very
he
tough.
He was a weapon.
Yeah.
People were saying, oh God, who was the guy last year who was that amazing running back they had?
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley. They're like, Sanders has really, really made it a lot easier to lose Saquon Barkley. Yeah, maybe he's not quite as good as Saquon Barkley, but he's made, it's not been that painful to lose him because Sanders is getting 7 yards a carry, and he's really a stud. They took him out, 2.7 yards per carry. So you're starting quarterback, you're holding 50% passing, 193 yards passing. Starting stud running back, you're holding it to 2.7 yards per carry. I tell you what, the only thing this defense, the defense did 2 things wrong. As we mentioned, they gave up a couple big plays, which they should have never given up, and they could not stop the QB run. And did they ever adjust to that? Did Shiano make a freaking adjustment to that? Because he got it whenever he wanted it. And I'm looking at it. Shiano's doing this thing where he's having regularly the linebackers play right up at the line.
Yep. You just took the words and the thoughts right out of my mouth, dude. Yes.
And so, McSorley's just running. They're getting caught up in blocks, and McSorley's running right past them. Back them the frick off the line and give them a chance to read what's coming and react.
Yeah.
And you're doing these linebackers are struggling. You're not doing them any favors putting them right up in the friggin' line. Back them off. That adjustment alone, I think, would have dramatically reduced McSorley's effectiveness if they just did that alone. Let alone some I don't know, man. I'm starting to think Shiano, great head coach, at least a very good head coach considering what he did at Rutgers.
Yeah.
The Greg Shiano experience as defensive coordinator is leaving me a little underwhelmed. I got to tell you.
Well, I'm perplexed as well. What you were alluding to, or not even alluding to. Let me rewind that. Yeah, when it comes to Greg Schiano, what he's doing with stacking the line of scrimmage with all 4 defensive linemen, and then he pushes all 3 linebackers, to your point, they're all lined up next to each other on the line of scrimmage, and the middle of the field is wide open. And so he wants to blitz the edges and bring heat with the defensive tackles. And then he expects one middle linebacker to drop back into coverage and cover the middle of the field. And usually they don't have enough time or speed to get back there and make the play. And that was what they got burned on. Yeah, he did the same thing last year against Oklahoma. And you saw what Baker Mayfield did. I mean, they just completely shredded Ohio State with that pass coverage. So I get it. You want to blitz and you want to, make it apparent that you're bringing pressure. But I just don't get that defensive strategy at all, even against a team like Indiana or Northwestern or whatever the case is. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And, I want to give Greg Schiano, credit because, to your point, hell of a job at Rutgers, Tampa Bay, I mean, you were an NFL coach at one point, so at least somebody thought something of you. Now, granted, that was only for, 2 or 3 years? So take that with
well for him.
Yeah, take that with a grain of salt. I mean, it wasn't exactly his finest shining moment as a head football coach, but nonetheless, very mind-boggling. But you know what, Chris? I mean, you take a look at the defense, and particularly the linebackers. That was something that was an area of content, or should I say discontent. 2 weeks ago after Tulane, the starting linebackers, Chris, didn't register one single damn tackle. And this week, I don't know either. How do your starting linebackers not have a single stinking tackle against Tulane of all friggin' teams? But
that's a running team. That's a friggin' wishbone team. They didn't get a tackle.
Exactly. It was a team that was, a shotgun triple option look, a team that primarily ran the football, and your linebackers didn't have a single stinking tackle. But this past weekend against Penn State, Malik Harrison and Tuff Borland both tied for the team lead with 8 tackles. Tuff had a sack. Malik Harrison had half a sack along with Draymond Jones. And Pete Werner, 5 tackles in the game, and he had 1 tackle for loss. So they definitely came to play a lot better against Penn State. And I think they obviously heard the criticism and they knew that they had to step up their game or else they were really never going to hear the end of it. But is there a linebacker problem at Ohio State?
And also Borland with a sack, Borland with a forced fumble.
And a forced fumble, thank you.
Yeah, that forced fumble was huge.
Huge.
So, this was definitely the linebackers' best game. I think this was, especially when you factor in the level of competition, I would say this was their best game, and there's a glimmer of hope that they can improve from here and get better. Because coming in, I was definitely saying there's definitely a problem at linebacker. I still view these linebackers as, it depends on what it's all relative, Andy, right? If we're talking about winning the Big Ten, considering the strength that they have at the defense, the strength they have at the defensive line, and they have a pretty good lockdown corner in Sheffield, and pretty, like an all Big Ten safety and Jordan Fuller, and when you add all of that in, the linebackers are good enough for the Ohio State, especially paired with this offense and special teams, to win the Big Ten. So,
no doubt about it.
It's not a concern. Now, it's when you're starting to say, well, is this a national championship level defense?
Yeah, there you go.
And it's probably not at this point. So if they don't show improvement between now and the playoffs, this is
playoffs?
Playoffs? Right. Assuming they get there, which, at this point, with the way they're playing, it's odds are they're going to lose a game somewhere. Now, they'll still probably, as long as that game they lose isn't the, they still, as long as they still win the Big Ten, they're not losing to Wisconsin in the conference game or something like that. They could still probably make the playoffs with 1 loss. And honestly, if they come out and have like a 5 turnover game, which usually, like every year, you usually have a game where you have like a 4 or 5 turnover game, and if it's against a quality opponent, you lose it. If it's against like a Kent State, you win it, right? But it doesn't matter. But
yeah.
So I could still see this team, even though I think they're going to win the Big Ten, dropping a game somewhere. But yeah, they look like a first round exit from the playoffs kind of team to me right now with the way this defense is playing, and I'm okay with that, I guess. I'm hopeful that they will turn it around. Let me just say that. I'm hopeful that there's still time for them to improve. Urban is very aware of the issues with the giving up the big plays. If they just shore up giving up the big plays, the defense goes from being, really suspect to being okay, and probably okay enough that they have a fighting chance in the playoffs if their offense could come out and be a juggernaut. But to answer, that was a really long answer to a simple question, which is the linebackers are a concern. The linebackers are a concern, and I honestly, and I think we've had the discussion off the air. I don't think we've ever had it on the air, but I'm pulling for Justin Hilliard, man. When I see Justin Hilliard in there, first of all, he looks the part. He looks like an NFL player, runs like an NFL player. He's got all the measurables, and he's just making plays. He's like always making plays. These guys are typically, like, most of the time they're not making plays. Like the Tulane game is a great example. Like, not getting a single tackle. Your linebackers should always be making plays, and if they're not making the play, they should be like right there, like if right around the tackle. Like if somebody else hadn't made the tackle, a half second later they would have. If Draymond Jones or Chase Young hadn't made the tackle, like a split second later, your linebacker was going to make it anyway. I mean, that's really what you want to see with your linebacker core. And these guys just are not around the ball. Where like Justin Hilliard's always around it. So I'm like, can we get some Justin Hilliard in there? Malik Harrison looks pretty good. He's showing some growth. I mean, he's still not the second coming of A.J. Hawk or anything, but he's not terrible.
Not terrible, but
I'd like to see more Justin Hilliard, maybe even some Keandre Jones, because those two guys seem like when they're in there, they're always around the ball. They're always making plays. Granted, it's against the other teams, like second teams usually, but at least they're there around the ball. So I would like to see it happen. I would also, as much as the linebackers are concerned, that second safety spot, Isaiah Pryor and Jashawn Wint are just, I would say,
atrocious.
Either of them, they're actually worse. If you want to talk about the single worst position on the team, it's not any of the linebackers. It's that second safety. I think that the single biggest weakest link is that second safety because it's awful. And I'm like, okay, Sean Wade, Sheffield's good. Arnett is tolerable.
Arnett is who he is, exactly.
Yeah, he's tolerable. He's not like atrocious, right? You'd like to get a little better, but he's not atrocious out there. He's not like he's usually right there. You know what I mean? When they throw the ball at him, he's usually right there. It just doesn't always make the play.
Yeah, especially when it's a back shoulder throw and dude leaps up one-handed and makes you look silly.
Right, yeah, what are you going to do, Jordan Fuller's good. So there's three of the four. Wade has been impressive when he's in there, and he's like the starting nickel. And Okudah's
coming along.
Bad.
He's starting to progress. Yeah. I'm
like, can we move either Okudah or Wade to that second safety position, and then the other one, right now they really seem to like Wade as the nickel. So I guess leave him there.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Second safety, because it's an embarrassment. Those two are they're not. I don't know that they would even be like starters on Indiana, let alone Ohio State.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Okudah a safety in high school? Wasn't that his natural position? I thought he was like.
You might be right. He's big.
Yeah, I thought he was recruited as, or at least he played safety in high school. Now, of course, they recruit these kids and they say, well, hey, we'd love to give you a shot here, but we could also see you over here, and if that's cool with you, come play football for us. And if they agree to that, sure. But I could have sworn that Okudah, his natural position was safety. And much like Baron Browning, where they took him from an outside linebacker and put him in the middle, you're taking a guy that's naturally good at a certain position he's been used to playing for years, and then all of a sudden you want to change things up and turn him into something that he may not be. And Jeffrey Okudah, once again, coming along as a corner. But to your point, disappointing that Isaiah Pryor, another top-notch safety in the country that I believe he and Okudah were in the same class, right? They're both redshirt sophomores right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but at any rate, here's Isaiah Pryor. Yeah, one of the top-ranked safeties in the country coming out of high school. And, yeah, unfortunately, he ain't panning out to his, 4 or 5-star status as a high schooler. And why not? Why not play around and stick Okudah back there? If anything, put him back to his natural position. And all of a sudden, we could see a vast change in the secondary because – to your point, Sheffield, okay, yeah, he kind of like Arnett. He is what he is, but I take a little more Kendall over Damon Arnett. Damon Arnett is just really what he is. He's tolerable, but I'm not going to write home about him anytime soon. Jordan Fuller is definitely the gem of the defensive secondary. But right now, the linebacker play, the safeties, I mean, if it weren't for the studs on the defensive line, and don't get me wrong, the defensive line looks as good as it does because I'm sure the linebackers are out there making plays and or at least, they're following their assignments. They're sticking to their coverage. Same with the defensive backs. And so, of course, the quarterback, gets a little rattled in the pocket. And then all of a sudden that defensive line just swallows him up like your boy Chase Young. Your boy Chase Young. Did he not come through for Ohio State when they needed him in probably the biggest stage that he's going to play on, at least here in the regular season, dude?
Oh, my God. It was Nick who? I mean, I was like,
well, I don't know if I go that far, but I get what you're saying. I know, man. Had just a ball game. 6 tackles, 3 for loss, total of 11-yard tackle for loss yardage, 2 sacks for 9 yards, 2 pass breakups. Chris, did Chase Young have, especially a huge one there, third quarter, I think, and a couple of quarterback hits. So just a ball game from the true sophomore out of DeMatha High School in Maryland, man.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line is just unbelievably talented. And consider this, you've got, the best player in the country arguably out, obviously the best player on the team, best player on the defense, and Nick Bosa out. And the defensive line was still amazing. You had BB Sanders.
Landers.
I'm like, why does that not sound right? BB Landers. He's playing, but he's still clearly not 100% because that guy was amazing. I mean, he was in the backfield all game long until they got injured a couple weeks ago. And he was back today. I mean, he didn't play versus Tulane, but he was back today. But I've never seen him have that quiet of a game. So and Urban even said yeah, he's not 100% yet. And that was obvious. So you had that happen. You got Draymond Jones, who is playing, frankly, every bit as good as Chase Young, especially if you look at the analytics. He's grading out right up there with him. He gets injured. And it's they're still this defensive line is still dominating. I mean, they are just an embarrassment of riches. It's just so good. Credit to Urban and recruiting. Credit to Larry Johnson and how he's developed these players and brought them along. And it's just wow. It's a good time to be a fan of defensive line play and be a Buckeye because they save the game. And oh man, that one play. The batting down play that he had, that one batted down play he had in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. I mean, if he doesn't knock that down, that guy Penn State picks up the first down and then some. Because the screen was wide open. He had green grass in front of him. So huge play. And then that stuff to end the game, the final play of the game, where he just comes unblocked around the edge and totally takes out Sanders in the backfield. I mean, that was cool. Now, everybody's talking about
that was, are you kidding me? He stunted around half of the right side or the entire right side of the Penn State offensive line. Just stunted right around them and just blasted right up the middle. I mean.
Right. So here, I got to talk about this play for a minute because everybody's talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it from maybe a slightly different angle. So. It cracks me up whenever everybody's the final play of the game. Why did you call that play? It's there was 100 plays in the game that Penn State ran. It was a 1-point game. like, how many other plays could you look at and be like, that play cost him the game, or that play cost him the game? You're really going to go down to, like, say this one play. Why did that was a stupid play call for James Franklin, But, so I kind of laugh a little bit when everybody makes this, calls it down to one play. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and asked me, like, so what did you think of that last play call by Franklin? But, this is one thing I will say. If you remember, there was multiple timeouts. So, like, Ohio State called a timeout, Franklin called a timeout, Ohio State called a timeout. So 3 timeouts for one play. 2 of them by Ohio State. And that was one where Shiano won the chess match. I mean, Urban said afterwards, he did that after that second timeout. Shiano said, they're doing zone read. Here's the play call to stop that. And that's what they did. So he knew, he read it correctly. He knew what was coming and called the right play. And then Chase Young, made an incredible play. So that's one thing. I will give Shiano credit for, like, he won that chess match on that play in crunch time. And then the other thing I got to comment on is, did you see after the game, Franklin had to be restrained from going into the stands to take out a fan was like, Coach, don't you think that was a stupid call to run the ball on the last play? And
what?
No. Oh my God.
No.
Yeah, so you don't have audio on the play, but people have said that's what happened to prompt it. Is there some guys like, hey, Coach, don't you think it was a dumb call to run it on the last play? And Franklin's like going up. He's going into the stands to take this guy out and has to be restrained. He was like that all pumped.
No way.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's sometimes when you're like, oh, it's so great to be a football fan. And then did you see Franklin's press conference afterwards?
Yeah, I saw. I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw the clip where he was like, let me make this like abundantly clear. We are like a great program. We are great, but we just got beat by an elite program, and I'm tired of like only being great, like it's and he was going off about that, but and
he's like you thought I was a maniac before, wait till you see me now.
yeah
It's like people have gotten too comfortable. They've gotten comfortable around here being great.
Yeah, and
you got to if you want to have growth, you got to get uncomfortable. So people are about to get real uncomfortable here. So that's kind of funny. I'm wondering if he couldn't learn some lessons from Urban Meyer when stroking out at Florida, taking a similar tactic, I guess. But it was entertaining. I'm one of these guys, a sports geek, that enjoys watching press conferences where the coach kind of has a
meltdown.
Like I love the press conference meltdown. It's one of my juicy, it's like a
pleasures, like a sinful pleasure.
It's a sinful pleasure for me. It really is.
Yeah, I did see some of it. I didn't see the part though where he almost clobbered somebody up in the stands, and but that's got to be frustrating, dude. I mean, seriously, the last 3 games between these two teams, the winning team has had to come back from at least a 13-point deficit or more to hang on and win the football game. I can't believe I'm about ready to ask you this, but I'm seriously about ready to ask you it, and I feel very dirty and blasphemous just
I think I know what's coming.
Thinking it and saying it. But has this game become the new rivalry, Chris?
Rivalry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew it.
Has it, though? I mean, seriously.
So here's a question for you.
All right.
I tell you, Andy, you're only allowed to watch one game in 2019.
Okay.
The whole year, one game, regular season. Which game you picking? You picking Michigan or you picking Penn State? I'm picking Penn State. I mean, given the last 2 years, given what you just said, given that, like, Meyer owns, Mr. Khaki, I mean...
You know what? I mean...
It's very clear Penn State is the second best team in the conference. It's not Michigan.
No. Yeah, right.
Very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out this year, who the better team is, but... You know what? I mean, honestly, given the recent history, I'd probably say, you know what? I want to watch that Penn State game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's where I'm at. I mean, I'm already like marking my calendar. I can't wait for Penn State next year. I'm like, man, this is the game of the year. Basically 3 years in a row, it's been like the game of the year. So, yeah, it's fun, it's exciting. We're already Penn State's rival.
I'd say so. Yeah,
we're there now. Oh, I mean, you ask the fans. I mean, they'll tell you like who's your rival. They will say it's Ohio State. So,
yeah,
they didn't have the historical rival coming into the Big Ten like Ohio State did. It was like
I mean I was getting ready to say Pitt. And
Pitt's, and there's two things. One, Pitt's not in their conference, and two, Pitt's not on their level. So
not this year they weren't.
Right.
So one more thing about this past weekend's game, and then we can move on to something else, maybe talk Indiana. I mean, Buckeyes, you have maybe an interesting game with the Hoosiers coming up this coming weekend. But you'd mentioned about Ohio State being a championship, caliber team. Do they strike you as being a championship caliber team? And you said, well, they got to kind of, formulate some more pieces, especially, on the defensive side of the ball with the linebacker play. Even I'd probably say the safeties or, the defensive backs, just the whole secondary in general, maybe a little bit. Is having a running game that integral in being a championship caliber football team, or was Penn State just doing that good of a job to shutting down Ohio State's rush game? But I think we all felt. I mean, here we are through 5 games, and Ohio State has traditionally been one of the most powerful, best rushing offenses in the country. And right now, their running game seems fairly non-existent. Is that because Dwayne Haskins in the passing game's doing so well, or is there something missing that we're just not picking up on right now?
No, it's play calling, and I'm fine with it. I love the way the play calling is going. I think Ryan Day is doing a fantastic job. Urban's finally getting out of the way and letting him do it. My only concern with the play calling is when it's 4th and 2 inches. For God's sakes, run the QB sneak. Don't. You need 2 inches. 2 inches, Andy. You're going to back up off the line.
2 inches, Pyle. 2 inches.
2 inches. You're going to be back 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. Snap the ball. Sit there, have the lineman pull. Slow developing play. Try to read the defensive lineman. Decide. Oh, I'm going to hand it off. Am I going to keep it? Are you freaking kidding me? You need 2 inches. Get up underneath that center. Direct snap, fall forward. It's unstoppable, Andy. It's freaking unstoppable. And it's not just me just saying that. Like the advanced analytics will tell you the single most effective play in all of college football is the QB sneak. It's honestly, it's virtually unstoppable. The only time you would ever it only has ever stopped when you need half a yard or less is basically if you fumble the snap. That's basically it. And now that's what Urban was taken to task on this by a reporter in the conference on Monday, his presser.
Yes.
And he's like, well, there's only so much time to practice. And we don't practice snaps under center. So if you don't want to get under there and then fumble the snap. And the reporter's like, well, then practice it. He's like, well, then practice it. And Meyer's like, duly noted. I was like,
I heard that. Yeah, that was great.
I was like, that was another, again, maybe I guess it's the little things, Andy. I love press conferences. I'm a sports geek, you're the king of the presser, man. Maybe that's what we should change your name. The king of the pressers, Chris Stefanick. Right.
But yeah, I guess I'm just a little disheartened a little bit at the rushing offense. But it's funny as I say that I am kind of scrolling through and looking at some stats here, at least as far as the Big Ten stats are concerned. And Ohio State is 5th right now in the conference at 210 yards a game. And they have the actually, as far as just overall rushing yards go. Granted, they played 5 games. Some teams have only played 4 at this point, but Ohio State does have the 3rd most amount of rushing yards total, and like I said, they're fifth at 210 yards a game. I don't know though. It just seems like I don't know. They should be running the ball better, but I guess that's the thing is that we were so used to JT Barrett and the multiple option keepers that they ran because of having a running quarterback. Now all of a sudden, and of course but that's the thing. You know what? God damn it! No, Andy, don't go back. Don't waffle. The passing offense was still good under JT Barrett. It wasn't the best, but I don't know. It just seems like they just don't have the mojo going as far as their rush offense is concerned. I don't know. That's just me.
Oh my God, dude! I could feel like the conversation starting to wrap up. We're talking about offense, and I just had 2 points that I just really got to point out here real quick.
Go for it.
That were super important in this game. One is something we've seen all along. It's been a staple of Urban Meyer. It was one of the keys to being winning that national title in 2014, and that's wide receiver blocking. I don't know any other team that puts emphasis on it more than Ohio State or again, king of the press conference here. Urban will talk about wide receiver blocking more than any other coach I know of. He made the player of the game on the offensive side of the ball.
Terry McLaurin,
who didn't have a single catch. But that KJ Hill touchdown at the end of the game.
He biffed like two dudes.
3. Go back and look. He actually took 3 guys out. I've never seen a wide receiver take 3 guys out. It was unbelievable.
Well, he was asked that before this weekend's game. Look at that. Bam! Oh, he did take 3 guys out. I'm watching the replay right now on OhioStateBuckeyes.com. Wow. Well, he shoves one guy like so hard that he pushes him back into 2 other guys. Unbelievable. I thought he only got 2 on that play, and he ended up getting – he got the cornerback, 2 corners and a safety, it looks like. Jeez.
Yeah. Wow. So there's that. So the wide receiver blocking is a big deal. And
Austin Mack had a nice block on that play, too.
Yeah, Austin Mack is a phenomenal blocker. They're both really, really good. And – Urban starting. I just love him. I love him. So he's like calling Terry McLaurin, Evan Spencer-ish.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you recall, like Evan Spencer was, a guy who didn't catch a lot of balls, but was like, Urban's like, this is the best blocking wide receiver I've ever had. And also Ezekiel Elliott, best pass blocking running back. He said he'd ever had, and the guy never his last year in Ohio State, Ezekiel Elliott graded out 100% on pass blocking.
Wow.
He didn't miss a single block the entire year. So at any rate, the skill position guys, you got to block if you're going to play at Ohio State, and they obviously know how to teach it, know how to emphasize it, know how to motivate guys. You're not going to get on the field unless you block. I don't care what kind of prima donna wide receiver you are. And Urban even said, when Ben Victor first came here, he didn't want to block, and so he didn't play much. And now he's one of them now. He gets it. He's blocking. He's getting on the field and making plays, but it's because he's decided to block and has gotten good at it. So that's my one point. Other point, the screen pass. Now, since Urban Meyer has been here, we see a lot of bubble screens. Which is where they'll just snap the ball instantly.
Well, how KJ Hill scored his touchdown. That was a bubble screen.
Right. You instantly whip it over there. But that's always been a part of it. And you'd see passes to the running backs, which I wouldn't necessarily call them screens. It's just maybe a wheel route, or the running back goes out on a slant, or just leaks, and they check down. That's not a screen. What I'm talking about is quarterback drops back, holds it. You allow the defenders to rush you. The idea is you actually want the defenders to get in the backfield. That way they're out of the play. And then you lob it over their heads to a wide receiver or running back, who then has a convoy of blockers, and he has a bunch of the defenders behind him because they all think they're going to get to the quarterback and get a sack. But you're wanting them to do that. You're drawing them in. You're waiting for them to come to you.
Right.
So a bunch of defenders behind him, a convoy of blockers in front of him, and you get on field. And it's kryptonite to an aggressive blitzing defense. And in the past, whenever people have been just coming after Ohio State with a blitz, I'm like, how about a screen pass? hello, why? This is like, defense or offensive football 101. The counter to an aggressive blitzing defense is you throw the screen. It causes them to have to slow down and be on that rush.
Yep.
And you saw that fourth quarter. The whole game long, Penn State's blitzing, really aggressive. All of a sudden, like, I've just not seen this in the Urban Meyer era where they would do what I'm calling that traditional screen, right? We'd see bubble screens, but not like this kind of screen. Ryan Day starts doing the screens, and it was the difference. That's how they got those two scores that they got at the end of the game. It seemed like almost exclusively screen passes. You know, they're like, okay, well, you're going to keep coming. We're going to keep throwing screens. You know, they were just like, they had several of them. And
how about when they were deep, like their game-winning touchdown drive, deep in their own territory on like the 4 or 5 yard line with under 4.5 minutes to go, and they call a friggin' screen pass to Dobbins, and he turns it into like 31 yards. Yeah, 96-yard epic drive. I mean, that drive is gonna go down in history books for Ohio State, especially if Ohio State goes on to win the Big Ten, and even more especially if they go on to then like make some noise in the playoffs. You know, because that's going to be one of the turning points of this season. Yep. You know, just legendary stuff right there. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like, wow, we didn't see this whole time under Urban Meyer. He lets the reins of the offense go through not necessarily his own choosing, gets that suspension. And now all of a sudden we're seeing stuff that like you never saw under Urban Meyer, and oh my God, am I loving it? Because now what are you going to do? You start blitzing, because, you know, Ohio State was showing a little vulnerability to the blitz there. TCU was blitzing, and it had some effect on getting, you know, Haskins out of rhythm. Especially, you remember that first half, he didn't exactly light the world on fire.
No, yeah, he
against Penn State,
looking in trouble.
You know, he was showing, you know, some signs of not being the most accurate quarterback in the world, like he was when the line was protecting him, right? With those blitzes were working, but now it's like, okay, you're gonna do that? All right, bring it. We're gonna throw a screen pass. So I'm really liking the play calling, and you know, I'm just so happy that we have Ryan Day on our side, that he's one of ours. So
yeah, the almost entire first half, Ohio State was insistent on kind of running a more traditional offense. You either handing it off, the more traditional in their sense, right? You know, either handing it off, passing it down the field, looking for, you know, deep pass kind of thing, or 20, you know, 15, 20 plus yards down the field. And then finally something just snapped. Like, we've got to counter this blitz somehow, because they were spooking Dwayne Haskins. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, he says he's not nervous, and he says he's cool as a cucumber, and all the guys on the team, McLaurin, KJ Hill, Paris Campbell, blah, 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 blah. Everybody says, you know, Urban Meyer, he's so cool under pressure and he doesn't get rattled. Bullshit. Okay, you're a 20-year-old kid in a 110,000. Yeah, you're right. It was 110,000 people screaming their heads off, waving their pom-poms. Everything is all white, and they want you to go down in flames. And you're a 20-year-old kid. I don't give a crap how cool, you know, you are under pressure. And he was pretty damn cool. But up to that point, I think they had him spooked. You know, they had him a little flustered. They were coming with some blitzes, some looks that he wasn't used to seeing. The speed of Penn State's defense, I don't think he was used to seeing. He saw a little bit of it against TCU. He saw a lot of it against Penn State. But when they finally said, you know what, let's calm down. Hey, let's open things up with a screen pass. And then, yeah, they kept going to it. I mean, a number of times. The bubble screen, obviously that halfback screen to Dobbins a couple of different times. It really opened things up, and that could have been the momentum game changer as far as the offense and bringing things together. But it truly was a collaborative team effort, because the defense stepped up a number of times as well. And boy, Chris, like you said, if the Ohio State, gets to the postseason and they're in the top 4, that drive in particular, that 96-yard drive in particular, could be the one that, everybody's talking about as being the drive that cemented them in at least getting to the college football playoff. Indeed. So before we get off here, sir, Indiana, we got a 4-1 Indiana team coming in this weekend. It's at home. Is this going to be a trap game? Let's not forget what happened last year after an insane comeback against Penn State. However, this scenario a little bit different. They were taking on an Iowa team that's pretty dangerous in their own stadium. We're welcoming in an Indiana team after coming off the road against a team that was extremely dangerous in their own stadium. But is this a trap game for Ohio State, you think? Is there any way that they have a little bit of letdown against a 4-1 Indiana team, or is it business as usual? And I think the spread's at like 27, 26.5 or something right now. Yeah, do they cover the spread?
Indiana actually led Ohio State 14-13 at halftime.
Yes, they did. Let's not forget that either. That was a hell of a first half last year to open up the season.
Yeah, Indiana's playing all right. They're winning close games. Now, some of these games you might say they maybe shouldn't have. You'd like to see them win by, because the opponents they're playing aren't like the world beaters. You'd like to see them win more than just a close one, but they're winning. They had a nice victory over Virginia, 20-16. Their only loss was to Michigan State, and I believe that they were doing pretty good against Michigan State for a while there.
Yeah, they were.
Serves.
Yeah.
So I think, I think they had I'm trying to remember. I've got it written down here somewhere, but yeah, they were there. At the end of the game, Michigan State kind of took advantage, but it was pretty close going into the end of that game. They don't have the athletes of Ohio State, but then again, Iowa didn't either. I gotta believe that they're going to be playing Iowa highlights all week long.
Right? Exactly.
And Iowa was in Iowa City. It was in Kinnick Stadium. This is homecoming in the Horseshoe. I don't think that this team is as good as Iowa was last year. The Indiana squad is not as good as Iowa. So I'm having a hard time seeing a big letdown. Are they going to be able to come with the same kind of juice they had versus Penn State? Probably not. That's human nature. That they're just not. But at the same time, this is a little too big of a task for Indiana to do even something to even really keep it close. I think I don't think Indiana's even going to be able to keep it close for a half like they did last year. I think this is going to be a blowout win.
Well, they don't. Indiana just does not have the guns that they had last year, and Richard Lago and Simi Cobbs, and their leading rusher Stevie Scott's averaging 92 yards a game, which is better right now than J.K. Dobbins at 76 yards a game. Their starting quarterback, that Peyton Ramsey, who I think actually for some reason supplanted Richard Lago throughout the year last year. 207 yards a game. He's thrown 8 touchdowns, but he's also thrown 5 interceptions. So, they just don't have the guns that they did last year. I don't see it happening, dude. I don't see it happen.
Yeah, Ohio State has a 23-game victory, streak going against Indiana. I'm pretty sure that's going to continue. So it's probably going to continue for a while. I don't see that streak coming to an end for the foreseeable future. So.
Now, wait, you said, 23 game, because I was sitting there thinking, does that go all the way back to the year that 88 tie?
I think Indiana won. They won in 88 and they won in 87. Those are dark days of my childhood, but
that was the Anthony Thompson days, dude, for Indiana.
Yeah, but 87 and 88 was the last 2 times they won. I don't remember the tie. When was there a tie?
Yeah, there was.
Oh, the tie was 1990. That's what it was.
90, yes.
Yeah, but they've had 23 straight victories going back to that 1990 tie. Yeah.
So since they tied in 1990. Ohio State has not lost to Indiana. So could this be a trap game? Could it be a trap game? I highly doubt it. But, hey, you never know. That's why they play the game, right?
Right.
So, well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. Chris and I greatly appreciate you guys checking out and downloading the show. So, Mr. Intergalactic Buckeye Fan, before we jump off the mics, anything you'd like to tell the kind listeners out there? At least the one listener, Mr. Urban Meyer. Thank you, as always, for
Urban,
listening.
So Urban, it's about time you checked out my other podcast.
Yes,
Choice
it is.
Conversations. It's a personal development podcast. It can help keep you from stroking out again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, work on having some stress reduction in your life and some health, some mental health, some physical health.
Yes.
So come on over, choiceconversations.com. Again, it's a personal development podcast, or you can find me on iTunes or Stitcher or anywhere you would find a podcast. You know, your podcast app of choice on your phone. Just do a search for Choice Conversations and you'll find me, and that'd be great.
Maybe if Urban feels like, tweeting at you, because he's kind of a tweeter, he likes to tweet. I think he's known to get on the old Twitter machine every now and again. He can tweet you at Choice Convo, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, they would. So tweet and retweet. Come over to Choice Convo, and I would appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. This edition of the show also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie Clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. And it's also brought to you by Columbus Wired, for your premier source for Central Ohio sports. Be sure to check out the gang at columbuswired.net and their Facebook page, Columbus Wired, and they're on Twitter as well, at Columbus_Wired. So there you have it, Chris. Another huge victory. I have a feeling we're probably going to be talking about another W for the Buckeyes after this upcoming weekend. But once again, as they say, that's why they play the game. So let's hope, though, that they're 6-0 and sitting at least third in the country still.
I think that's a safe bet. I think at this point, the only team on their schedule that can beat them is themselves.
Well, what's more fun than beating yourself?
Yeah.
At least that's what I've been told. Not that I have any experience with that. Not, Chris, that there's anything wrong with that either. So let's leave them like we always do. OH!
No comment. I-O.
Go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town, to the stadium to hear the band by far